Hi there folks, welcome to Dunsy's Guitar World, and as you can see, today I'm out and about. We talk about two things, Southern rock and Edinburgh rock. Back in a minute. So Edinburgh, I don't know if you can see this, but if I zoom in, away over there, that's Fife. Over the River Forth. Interesting place, Fife. Been there many times. And we're heading uptown, central Edinburgh. Tram system, art gallery, very nice place. So how did I get into Southern rock? Well, it's a long story, like many of the things on my channel are, but I have an assistant back in the studio who has the appropriate props for this story. So 1980, I think it was 1980, I got an album for my Christmas, and it was the Rolling Stones, Emotional Rescue. Now, you know, I'll level with you here, I'm not the world's biggest Stones fan anyway, and that's not a great Stones album. So I went to school after the Christmas holidays, and there was a guy in my class who was a huge Stones fan. So he said to me, what did you get for Christmas, Dunsy? And I said, the Rolling Stones album, Emotional Rescue. So he says, well, what do you think of it? And I said, no, to be honest, I'm not a big fan. And he said, well, I have the first Lynyrd Skynyrd album that I got recently. Here it's here. Thank you for that. And he said, do you want to swap it? And I was like, well, you know, I've heard Freebird, I like that. Yeah, let's do that. So we traded albums. Now between you and me, I think I got the better deal. This is early 1981, and so began my love of Southern rock. So let's head uptown in Edinburgh, see what we can see while I discuss Southern rock. So when I listened to the first Skynyrd album, pronounced Lynyrd Skynyrd, I couldn't believe how good it was. I mean, I'd been listening to, you know, a lot of heavy metal in the UK, Saxon, Motorhead, UFO, you know, we were big UFO fans already by that time. But with Skynyrd, I'd never heard anything like it, you know. So there was three guys playing guitar solos, you know, and all the guitar players, all those guys playing the solos were fantastic, and the songs were great. And it had a real attitude, and if I'm being honest, it had a big bit of romanticism, you know, coming from Edinburgh, where, you know, you don't see a lot of Southern rock bands. It was I just loved it, and from then on I was into Skynyrd, you know, a huge Skynyrd fan, and all the other bands that came from Skynyrd as well, you know, Rossington Collins band, the Alan Collins band, and yeah, I loved it. Now, as well as having 3 lead guitar players, what I found as well was with Skynyrd, I could actually manage some of the solos, you know, with UFO with Paul Chapman. I couldn't play Paul Chapman solos. I mean, if you watch my videos, I still can't play Paul Chapman solos. Michael Schenker, I can't play Michael Schenker solos. But with Skynyrd, you know, there was some parts of the lead guitar you could actually manage. You know, when you're starting out, to actually achieve playing along with the record and to achieve a bit of lead guitar playing, you know, you think it's all worthwhile, makes it all worthwhile. So yeah, Edinburgh Castle, let's have a look. That's where they make Edinburgh rock. The castle sits on a rock. Princess Street Gardens. Now, I don't know if you can hear that god-awful noise in the background, but I mean, I'm on record as saying how much I hate bagpipes. So once I got the first Skynyrd album, that was me. I just kept buying them all. I mean, the plane crash had happened in October 1977, so I mean, the band weren't going when I first got into them, so I mean, I missed the whole thing the first time around, but I really got into Skynyrd big time. And I think it was because you could like I say, you could play their tunes, and they were great rocking tunes. They weren't particularly complex tunes, but they were great to play. I mean, I even loved them so much when I got married 20 years ago. We got married in Las Vegas in America. My wife, obviously that's who I married, my wife, and she said, "Where do you want to go on honeymoon?" And I said, "I want to go to North Carolina." I'd never been there, but I'd heard about it in a Lynyrd Skynyrd song.
Did you ever see the beauty of the hills of Carolina?
And she said, "Well, you just want to go because you've heard it in a song." And I was like, "Yeah, it just sounds like the most beautiful place on earth." And I've now been 6 times, and I would say it is the most beautiful place on earth. So that's how much I love Skynyrd. So let's continue our hunt for some Edinburgh rock. So I mean, Skynyrd was the first southern rock band I got into, but then Kerrang! Issue 1 came out 1981, I think it was, June 1981. And who's in it? Blackfoot. ZZ Top. And it was like, I need to investigate this further. And Blackfoot had played Castle Donington, Monsters of Rock Festival, 1981, that had been broadcast on the Friday Rock Show. And I'd recorded that, and it was like southern rock but heavier. And that was us, we were into Blackfoot. Here's my Blackfoot albums. Now the first southern rock band I saw live was indeed Blackfoot. We saw them in April 1982 at the Edinburgh Playhouse. Now I don't have many concert t-shirts from back in the day because, to be honest, I'm a bit bigger now than I was when I was 15, 16. But I do have my Blackfoot one, as you can see here. My assistant at home's going to model it for us. Apologies for that, folks. And I have my tour programme and my badge. As well, I have the whole set. Maybe they had scarves and flags, but I didn't get them. And the support on that tour was new wave of British heavy metal legends, Samson, without Bruce Dickinson. What was his name? I joined the band. Big chap. Calm Before the Storm. Nicky Moore. Nicky Moore was singing for Samson, and they were great. I mean, when he came on stage at the Playhouse, it was like the loudest thing I'd ever heard in my whole life. It was so loud. And then Blackfoot came on, and they were even louder. Now, interestingly, as again often happens, some of the Blackfoot live album, I think Road Fever, first track, side 2, was recorded at the Edinburgh Playhouse. So I'm technically on a Blackfoot live album. I mean, I'm not playing, I'm not singing. Well, you can't hear me singing anyway. So we love Blackfoot, great band. Now I've noticed recently that Ricky, maybe 5-6 years ago, Ricky's put a band out called Blackfoot, and he's not in it, Charlie's not in it. I mean, there's no members of Blackfoot, previous members of Blackfoot in it. They sound okay, but you've got to have Charlie Hardrett at least to make it sound like Blackfoot. Bobby Barth from Axe singing, So yeah, then we got into Blackfoot, and I love Blackfoot, absolutely fantastic band. And Skynyrd, like I say, I just became a huge Skynyrd fan. I mean, I didn't see Skynyrd live for the first time until must have been the late 90s, maybe mid to late 90s. They played Edinburgh, and then I think I've seen them 4 or 5 times since then. I saw the farewell tour. I saw it twice. I saw it once in Virginia Beach, in Virginia, the United States of America, when they were supported by Cheap Trick, Foghat, and 38 Special. Now, I couldn't believe I was seeing 38 Special. I love 38 Special. They were a bit more sort of mainstream AOR, but great southern rock band. Don Barnes, what a player, incredible guitar player with his Les Paul Jr. Great guitar player. So yeah, I saw them with 38 Special, Cheap Trick, and Foghat. Who ever thought I would see Foghat? But they were great as well. I mean, needless to say, it wasn't the original lineup of Foghat. I think it was just the rhythm section, but they were good. So yeah, I saw Skynyrd twice on their farewell tour on 2 different continents, and both times fantastic. I'm a huge Gary Rossington fan. Just loved the sound he got on his Les Paul, you know, that thick Les Paul sound. And then when you look at his Les Paul, you know, it's had the headstock broken off, held together with a couple of screws and some glue. I mean, unless that belonged to Gary Rossington, that wouldn't go for, you know, over £500,000. But I think it would go for substantially more than that, as it has recorded some of the greatest songs ever written. And the solos on Saturday Night Special, his solo. I mean, even Ed King, when you watch the late Ed King's interview, he was saying, as soon as Gary started playing that first part, he was like, you know, it's your solo, Gary. I think they were quite good like that. I mean, I think they sussed out who was best at doing the solo. There was no ego, you know, there was no argument going, oh, I could do that solo better than you. I think they all knew each other so well that they just knew who was going to do the solo. So let's proceed further up towards Edinburgh Castle. So that's Edinburgh Castle behind me. Now I've lived in Edinburgh for 30 years, and I mean, as castles go, very impressive. I'm sure you'll agree. But I've only actually been here. I've been here twice. Once when I was about 5. There's a photograph of that. Me and my dad and my friend. And the other time was, I think, 2001 maybe, 2002. My friend Fred was across from North Carolina. He stays in Raleigh because, as I said, when we were on honeymoon, we went to Raleigh and I met Fred and his friends, and we've been friends for 20 years now. So as well as my 20th anniversary with my wife, it's my 20th anniversary with Fred. Brilliant. Sadly I couldn't go visit this year because of the COVID, but next year. So yeah, Fred came across here. He's from Detroit originally. I don't think there's many castles in Detroit. I've never been there, but I don't think there's many castles. And he wanted to see the glories of Edinburgh Castle, so I came here with Fred, and that's the only time in my adult life I have been in Edinburgh Castle. So another important moment in my Southern Rock story was Kerrang issue 13. My assistant will show you Kerrang issue 13 now. So as you can see, it's like a Southern Rock, Southern Boogie special. It's got all the Southern Rock bands you could ever want to know about. So of course the first thing I did was immediately try to buy all the records of all these bands. And I read it intensely, and I probably took notes just in case I had got an exam on Southern Rock history. And it was good. I mean, it's good. This is long before the internet. How do you find out about things? And Kerrang was a big moment in many of our lives for finding things out. So I diligently studied the history of Southern Rock and brushed up on all the bands, and been a fan ever since. Was that 1981 to 2020? My whole brain can't word that out, but it's a long time. So I'm on the final furlong now, as we say in Scotland. That means I'm almost at the end of my journey. I've nearly reached the home of Edinburgh Rock. Not Southern Rock, not Scottish Rock, Edinburgh Rock. So let's see what we can get. So there you go, folks. I've been uptown and I have in my hand, I have my Edinburgh Rock. On my head I have my newly purchased Edinburgh Scotland headgear. I was in full-on tourist mode. So hope you enjoyed the video today. I mean, it really was just me telling my story of how a Scottish guy became incredibly interested and enthusiastic about Southern Rock, and I think it really was just because during my formative years, I mean, I could play some riffs, play some Sabbath riffs, UFO, Tag is Fantang, Judas Priest, stuff like that. but it was the Skynyrd lead guitar stuff that I really picked up on, because although it's great, some of it is quite easy to pick up to begin with. I mean, it's mostly pentatonic. And Alan and Gary and Ed on the first few albums, great players. And then Steve Gaines, Steve Gaines was an incredible guitar player. I mean, he was so good in so many different styles. So that was it. I was just uptown, looking about, showing the sights, looking at Edinburgh Castle, which is built on a big rock. Edinburgh Rock isn't actually made there, and if I'm being honest, I'm not a big fan of Edinburgh Rock. And I needed to get out today and get some fresh air. And the other thing as well is, I mean, I live in a beautiful city, and when you live somewhere beautiful, you do take it for granted. I mean, I was uptown today, and that's the first time I've been in the centre of Edinburgh in about 6 months. And this isn't COVID related, this is because it's on my doorstep, and I never choose to go there that much. So for me, it was good to get out and about today and look at the beautiful city I live in. I think more importantly, my wife has some friends round. As far as I can tell, we'll be drinking wine, and that can go terribly wrong, terribly quickly. Women and wine, women and song, as David Coverdale said. And this is my first outside video, so my apologies if the sound isn't very good. It's quite windy out today, although as you can see, it's a beautiful sunny day in Edinburgh. There's no rain today. Apologies if my camera doesn't pick up the images correctly. And finally, my apologies if I'm speaking too quickly. There's a lot of people about today, and I wanted to capture some footage when there wasn't too many people about, so I had to do it quite quick. But I may do some subtitles for this when I watch it back. If I think there's bits that are very difficult to understand, I will subtitle it. So thank you for tuning in, folks, to my long and winding road through Edinburgh, a look at Edinburgh Castle and my story about Southern rock, and thanks to my assistant back in the control room for showing you all the stuff. So cheers for now, folks. Thanks for tuning in again.